All right, everybody. Hey, how you doing? This is our Wednesday, April the 1st. Finally made it to April. YouTube video presentation. I got my South Fort Myers camouflage hat. No, I don't really. I have Will's South Fort Myers camouflage hat, but it looks good on me. Let's face it. As always, it looks good on me. Uh, Talking about today's stuff, Wednesday assignment. First of all, let me tell you something awesome on attendance this week. I No, I started posting stuff last week, the week actually before distance learning started, but everybody showed up, and commented last week for the most part. And this week, same thing, man. I posted Monday's assignment. You guys have commented on there real good. I only had a few people as of tonight. I'm filming this on Tuesday night. Only had a few people that have not commented on there right now and got their 10 points for participation. But those people I emailed, so hopefully I got in touch with you today. And hopefully by lunch tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, April the 1st, you'll have commented on there. You've got to check in with me on Monday and just simply comment on the thing. Tell me you're here, because every Wednesday I've got to check attendance and I got to post it and keep up with who's showing up and who isn't. So I know some of you showed up, you just didn't comment. So uh, like I said, I think we were down to maybe 25 people in all 6 of my classes together that had not commented. So really, really good. You got to keep that up for the remainder of the year. If as long as we're doing this, right now we're going to be doing this at least until the first of May. Right now, starting at April, I think they're projecting the coronavirus will hit its biggest toll in 2 weeks, around April the 15th. Praying for everybody. Hopefully we're all going to get through this and not have any issues, but hopefully the worst will be behind us at the 1st of May. And maybe by the end of May, maybe we can go back to school for a couple of weeks and knock out prom and graduation and say sayonara to this school year. Weird one, weird one. But it is what it is. Let's talk about Wednesday assignment. That's today's assignment. Big thing today that you're doing, this is your evaluation. Now, Monday, you're getting your weekly assignment every week. You guys got terms and questions this week. Hopefully you're working. I've already had some people, again, as of Tuesday night, that's already turned it in. So excellent. Try not to give you a whole bunch of work. That's it. Every Monday, we'll give you a weekly assignment. It's due on Friday. Turn it in on Friday's assignment. Okay. Wednesday's your evaluation day. Now, some weeks this will be worth 50 points. Some weeks it'll be worth 60, 70, 80, 100 points. So a big thing, it'll be 100 points. This particular week, we're doing the evaluation a little bit different. I got to figure out a way to see that you're learning, but at the same time, see that you're not cheating. The problem with quizzes and things like that is obviously Quizlet. Sometimes we're still going to have to do that. I don't want to get too much into USA test prep right now because I want to make sure everybody's got the basic things before we start getting into going to something like that. So this week it's a written evaluation, okay? And I'm going to post it on today's assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly what you're going to have to do with your written evaluation for this week. Now, right now I'm already working on the Wednesday assignment, but I don't have it done completely yet. I don't have it uploaded for you guys because I want to record this YouTube video. But basically what you're having to do today is, get it pop up here, is I gave you, it's entitled Civil Rights Lesson 1 and 2 Evaluation. Now what you're going to do is you're going to create you a Google Doc. As it shows you right here, create your Google Doc, put your first and last name at the top of it, and put the title that I have right here, Civil Rights Movement, Lesson 1 and Lesson 2 Quiz. It's not really a quiz. It's kind of a short answer response or a long answer response, depending on how successful you are. First thing you're going to do is you're going to watch this YouTube video. You're watching it right now, so you did something right already on civil disobedience. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Next, you're going to copy the question that's below, down here where it says question 1. It says, describe why the uses of civil disobedience during the civil rights movement. Well, excuse me, I'll have a little typo there. Describe why the use of civil disobedience during the civil rights movement, should say, was successful. All right. So we'll get that in there. All right. Who inspired the use of it and who used it with success? What are some examples of it in use, and describe these examples? And then lastly, do you feel like the civil disobedience actually worked? Now, this is worth 85 points. You're going to take this question, you're going to copy and paste it over on your Google Doc, and then you're going to answer it. And I put right here, I want 1 page typed out for your response. All right. That seems like a lot, but it's not. I gave you 3 things to talk about here in this page. So that's 3 paragraphs right there. The first thing you got to do, you got to do this stuff if you want full credit, 85 points. Whatever of this you don't do, and then throw in some punctuation, capitalization, that kind of stuff. Whatever it is you don't do, then I'm going to start taking points off for it. Now, here's what you got to do. First thing you got to do is you got to talk about the 2 famous men that use civil disobedience. I'm fixing to tell you about them right here on this video. Second thing is you got to give me 2 examples from the civil rights movement of the use of civil disobedience. We're going to talk about that here in just a second as well. Number 3 is, finally, in your opinion, is civil disobedience a good way to fight back? All right. Some people didn't like it. Some people didn't think it was a good way. Others think it's the only way to be successful. So after I talk here in just a second about it, you're going to go click on this assignment today, this Civil Rights Lesson 1 and 2 evaluation. You're going to answer in 1 type page. You're going to answer what I'm saying right here. You're going to answer this question. Here are the 3 things you're going to talk about in that. Don't be intimidated by it. Do the best you can. Obviously, not everybody can make 100 in U.S. history. Me just giving you lessons and you doing notes and stuff, and turning it in, that's a little too easy. So we got to do some things here just to level it off and separate our A students all the way down. Hopefully everybody's going to do well and get an A, but we'll see. All right. Don't copy and paste it from somebody else. Don't get somebody else's paper, because obviously I'm going to see, I've got nothing else to do during the day but look at these things. So make sure that you're original and it's your thing, so that when I look back through it, I don't see it's everybody else's information. All right. It's got to be turned in today. It must be turned in on Wednesday. So make sure you turn it in by midnight tonight. I'm going to be looking for it. If I don't see it by midnight tonight, you automatically just drop 25 points. I'll add that on this document just to remind you, or I'll add it on the Google Classroom up there just to remind you again. It's got to be turned in midnight. All right, hopefully no questions about that. That's your assignment for today. Let's talk about what civil disobedience is. All right, going up here to the top again. Let me move this over just a little bit. Start here with this man right here. The first thing to basically explain to you what civil disobedience is. Civil disobedience is basically where you stand up for yourself, you fight back from tyranny, from oppression. Obviously, in the civil rights movement, we're going to be talking about African Americans fighting for their civil rights. They want to be treated equal. They have been slaves. They're out of slavery. Once they get out of slavery, bam, they're stuck into segregation, where the whites live over here, the blacks live over there, and never the two shall meet. Segregation was not separate. Well, it was separate, but it was not equal. And that's the big problem. African Americans simply wanted to be equal to everybody else. And so that's going to be the fight here. Now, what that led to is what we already talked about this year so far. We've talked about the Ku Klux Klan. We've talked about Jim Crow laws. We talked about the ways they restricted them from voting. So these are all things that happened. But obviously, things like the KKK was one of the bigger things, where they physically restrained and physically did things to these African Americans to stop them from being, a human, basically, whether it was lynching, whether it was hanging, whatever it would be. So a way to fight back had to be something that would stand out. You can fight physically back and forth, but you know as well as I do, if at school, if we have a fight, I don't care if you start the fight or you're the person that had the fight started on you. Both of you get in trouble. Both of you is going to be suspended. Both of you is going to be put out. It doesn't matter who started it. If you both fight, you're both in trouble. A lot of people look at things that were being done to African Americans, the lynchings, the hangings, all these things. and they said, well, let's just fight back. Let's kill white people. Let them see. You know, very famously going back to the days during slavery, you know, you had rebellions, you know, Bacon's Rebellion, you know, all these things that happened where people are fighting back, you know, trying to stop the oppression of slavery. And the problem with these things is, you know, they don't quite stand out because you can't really tell who the good guy and bad guy is because everybody's fighting, everybody's killing. And so when the civil rights movement began in the 50s and 60s here per se, and what we're talking about in the United States, where we really made the push to see this, we shall overcome this new world for African Americans in America, civil disobedience is going to become the thing that's going to really help to shape it. It's controversial though, because it's not something that happens quick, okay? This guy right here on the screen, you see his picture a few times. A lot of you already know who he is from world history. This is Mohandas Gandhi, Mohandas K. Gandhi. He's from India. Now, the Indians, talking about India, not American Indians, I'm talking about the country of India. The Indians were oppressed and held down by the British at the turn of the century, in the turn of the 20th century. Great Britain had always used India as its jewel in the crown. It was its most valuable resource. All right. The Indians wanted to fight back. They wanted to be on equal footing, and really they wanted to run their own country. Gandhi himself conformed to what the British wanted. He went to Oxford. He got his degree. He was a lawyer, all these successful things. And Gandhi is going to come out of those things and go back to India, and he says, you know, this is not really what I want. So he basically leads this movement for independence for India. And instead of being violent, instead of fighting back, he's going to fight back by not fighting back. And that's the civil disobedience. Whether it's things like marching, the big salt march, where they marched to the sea instead of buying and having their salt tax, they marched all the way to the sea to get the salt basically from the ocean. Okay, so they even had to pay British taxes. Gandhi, you know, had massive rallies where he would go and the people would sit in and sit down. And of course, you see a picture down here, the stock photo of them just meeting it. And basically, they didn't do anything. They didn't fight back. They didn't try to use guns and weapons to fight back against the British. They just wrote it out. They tried non-violent means. And it was successful. It also was not successful in some instances. Gandhi will get killed towards the end of the movement. All right. It takes a while for it to happen. A lot of people in India were beaten and, you know, hurt by this, but they wrote it out. And over time, the British withdraw control over India, and India kind of becomes its own independent place. All right. Martin Luther King Jr. and some of our leaders from the civil rights movement are going to look at civil disobedience. I've pulled up a whole bunch of pictures here for you on my screen so you can see. But Martin Luther King Jr. and several of the civil rights activists are going to look at Gandhi's approach to using civil disobedience, non-violent means, and they're going to say, this is what we've got to do in America. We've got to use these way of fighting back without fighting, because nothing's more powerful than when you see somebody beaten down and you see that victim laying there. If that victim is helpless and can't fight back, I don't care how bad they get beaten. Everybody looks at that at some point and they say, golly, look at this. It's horrible. It is horrible. And you feel in your heart for that person. And so that's kind of what we're going to see here. Now, again, the problem with civil disobedience is, number one, it's tough to do. I mean, it's tough to take a punch to the face. It's tough to get arrested and picked on and these things and killed without wanting to fight back. But if you keep your eyes on the prize, which is one of the famous sayings about the 50s civil rights movement for African Americans, you're going to keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is this freedom, this long march to freedom that they're trying to make. And it's going to be a long march. It's going to be a difficult march. Some of the famous events and some of the things that are used in this civil disobedience. Now, remember, our two people here that's introduced it, Gandhi in India, and obviously Martin Luther King Jr. is going to use it successfully here in America in our civil rights movement. Now, let's talk about some events and some ways that they fought back. Of course, very famously, right here you see in this image, the sit-in. The sit-in is one of the easiest things you can possibly do. But it's also one of the most painful things at the same time, humiliating things. Basically, people would go into areas like restaurants, where, restaurants very famously, I mean, a lot of you have seen Remember the Titans and things like that. Restaurants, usually a white restaurant, only served white people. If a colored person came in, as they called it, they were forced to either eat outside or they just wouldn't be served. All right. I just mentioned the word colored, water fountains. You'd have the white water fountain, the colored water fountain, the white bathroom, the colored, that derogatory kind of comment, calling them colored, all these things. And again, I think we always just imagine this is just the South. The South is where a majority of African Americans lived at this time period. But this is something that was happening kind of all over the world, or excuse me, all over the country. It's just going to be the main focus we're going to see in the South. All right. But the sit-ins, as you see here, people basically would just go to the counter. Hopefully everybody can see this picture that I'm waving at right here on my screen. You'd go to the counter, you'd sit down. Sometimes it was all black groups. Sometimes it was black and white groups. Sometimes it was men, women, a little bit of everything. Oftentimes they either got drug out and beaten up for doing these sit-ins. They'd have drinks and some milkshakes and food and ketchup and mustard dumped on them. I mean, the sit-ins, didn't have to necessarily be just a restaurant. It could really be anywhere. But the sit-ins were a powerful strategy for the civil disobedience. Of course, another example of that is going to be kind of a sit-in, but it's going to be done by a woman. This picture right here is this woman. Very famously, that's Miss Rosa Parks. Down in Montgomery, she's a maid. She basically had to take the bus home every night. The buses in Montgomery, Alabama, the white sat in the front, the black sat in the back. The black area went in just a few seats. The white area was full. Problem was not many whites actually rode the bus. She gets on the bus. She's tired. She don't want to sit up in the back. So she just plops down in the first available seat she has. She's not going to stand up when you got all these empty seats. Rosa Parks, of course, refuses to get up. And you get, of course, the famous thing with Rosa Parks being arrested. Again, kind of a version of the sit-in, because she sits on this bus and refuses to get up. Hey, they threaten her. They scare her to death. They arrest her. Hey, she stood there like the strongest man on the planet. Took that arrest, went down, had that photograph of her being arrested, and history's made. The African Americans in Montgomery will boycott the buses. They refuse to ride the buses. Eventually, again, they're not fighting back. They don't go, oh my God, you've beaten up Rosa, you've arrested Rosa Parks. Let's go here and beat up the cops and shoot the cops and kill the cops. They say, we're just going to hit them where it hurts, and that's in the pocketbooks. And so they quit riding the buses. They do the Montgomery bus boycott. When they do the Montgomery bus boycott, of course, very famously, the Montgomery buses about go bankrupt because African Americans were really the only people riding the buses. And so they have no choice but to open the buses up and desegregate the buses. All right, it takes a while, but very, very important thing was Rosa Parks. And another great example besides the sit-in is Rosa Parks' bus boycott, very famous civil disobedience. Of course, the marches. Gandhi did the March to the Sea, the Salt March. Martin Luther King Jr.'s big thing is going to be several different marches. Of course, most famously of Martin Luther King's march is going to be his March on Washington. That's the very famous event where he goes to Washington, D.C., he and several other activists, and of course they'll stand up at the Lincoln Memorial, and he will give, probably his most famous speech. I don't think it's his best speech, but definitely the one that everybody remembers, probably one of the most famous American speeches there is, and that's the I Have a Dream speech. By the way, he didn't even have that written down. Somebody in the group he was standing with told him, said, Martin, tell him about the dream. Because the crowd was getting restless. They were getting a little bit bored. It was hot in the middle of summer. And so he starts just off the top of his head. giving off this wonderful speech, the I Have a Dream speech. And, obviously everybody knows the importance of the speech. I'm going to post that speech for him. Try to do it, I think, Monday of next week, because I'm going to send you on a little field trip next Monday. But that's coming up, so you'll get to hear that great speech. I'm going to post one of his others. My favorite speech of his is the Sermon on the Mount the night before he was killed. But March on Washington. Everybody thought that was going to be a violent thing. All these African Americans going to Washington, D.C., it'll be a huge fight. People will be killed in the streets. Nope. Peaceful day. Very, very peaceful moment. It's really the pinnacle of the civil rights movement that everybody goes to Washington. And it goes off without a hitch. I mean, great moment, great memory, still etched in stone in this country of ours. Literally etched in stone. If you go to Lincoln Memorial, you can stand right on the place where he, with his name written on it, where Martin Luther King gave that speech. Another march that didn't do as successfully was the Selma to Montgomery march. And very famously, they're going to march across the bridge in Selma, Alabama. As they try to go over the bridge, basically they're going to be attacked and just beaten to a pulp. I mean, it is one of the more violent things down in Alabama. Alabama is going to be the epicenter for the civil rights movement. So much violence and stuff there. Of course, Governor George Wallace, very, very physical, very, very hatred kind of man, almost like a Adolf Hitler type person. But Wallace wants the Alabama police, National Guard, wants them to stand out. They want them to shut down these protests, these marches. And so the Selma to Montgomery march that was going to happen, marching over this bridge into Montgomery, led by Martin Luther King Jr., turns into a violent beating. They will come back and do the march a little bit later on, but it's a symbol of the marches. I think to some people, they would say the march is not being successful because it turns into violence. All right. Another march is another one that's going to get shut down pretty quick, and that's in Birmingham, Alabama, and that's called the Children's Crusade. King decides, hey, let's take the children, let them march. They won't attack the children. And if they do attack the children, look at this mess. He marches the children through Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham had a police commissioner named Bull Connor, and Bull Connor is going to, instead of letting the children march, he's going to attack the children with police dogs, water hose, and it is just awful. At night, people came home from work and they watched the news, and that's the first images that came up is little children being attacked by water hoses, the pressure of the water hoses, being beaten in the streets, having dogs come up and attack them. And the children's march, the Children's Crusade in Birmingham is just devastating. But it's those images, those children, those protesters in Selma, those images stand out to America because African Americans didn't fight back. They just took it. They just took it and said, okay, this is what we got to do to show everybody that we're the victims here, not somebody else. All right. So those are a couple of examples so far. Rosa Parks bus boycott, the sit-ins throughout the South, the marches, the March on Washington, the Selma to Montgomery March, the Children's Crusade. And then one more example of civil disobedience that was attempted that you can tell me about is about the Freedom Riders. Got a picture up here about those Freedom Riders, actually right here. Basically, the Freedom Riders is a group of white and black students, mostly college students, got onto buses, Greyhound buses, and they rode basically like on the old Pony Express ride from Washington down to New Orleans. They were trying to drive through the South, this old ride. And the purpose of getting on this bus and riding was just to show, hey, black people, white people can get on this bus, we can ride, and everything's going to be okay. It didn't work like that. Almost every city they got to in the deep South, whether it was in South Carolina, whether it was in Georgia, whether, of course, eventually Alabama's where it really goes off. These images you see here from Alabama, this is in Anniston, Alabama, not far from where Coach Oldie's from here. But Anniston, Alabama, the Greyhound bus will be attacked. It will be bombed and set fire. The Freedom Riders will be drug off the bus and beaten to a pulp, hospitalized, arrested. the cool thing is people just kept showing up and getting back on new Greyhound buses, loading up and going again. And the Freedom Riders eventually made it all the way to New Orleans. But it was tough. It was a tough trip. And obviously the images of the Freedom Rides, I'm telling you, you won't see more famous image from the Civil Rights Movement than that Greyhound bus on fire there in Anniston, Alabama, to symbolize the Freedom Riders. Again, civil disobedience. They don't fight back. They don't try to conjure up action. They just take it. They just take it and show that they're the victims looking for freedom again. So again, all those events come together, and those are all examples of civil disobedience. Remember, Gandhi and King are the guys that kind of begin the civil disobedience. Rosa Parks and her bus boycott, sit-ins, the marches on Selma, Washington, and of course the Children's March in Birmingham, and of course the Freedom Riders bus being attacked. All those are examples of civil disobedience where activists, civil rights activists were attacked and they took it, okay? They didn't fight back. They took it to show that they were going to make it through all this stuff. Of course, not everybody agreed with what was going on. Most especially is going to be Mr. Malcolm X. Malcolm X, of course, the leader of the Nation of Islam at that time. Malcolm X is going to stand up and say, hey, we got to get equal opportunity. We got to get equal rights by whatever means necessary. Malcolm X felt like, hey, you know, if it takes fighting back, it takes killing people to do these things, we got to do it. So Malcolm X is kind of the opposite of civil disobedience. He is the opposite of civil disobedience. Instead of fighting back with no fight, Malcolm X is, boom, let's go and let's fight. And so Malcolm X is going to be the flip side of that, okay? You know, Malcolm X looks at things like the Freedom Rides. He looked at, you know, another famous thing that happened in Birmingham, Alabama, is the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed, and 4 little black girls were killed when they were at Sunday school class on a Sunday morning from this bombing. And, you know, Malcolm X looked at this, and he looked at the beatings, the Freedom Riders and the Selmas. And Malcolm X felt like, hey, we can't just sit here like Martin Luther King Jr. is wanting us to do and not fight back. We've got to fight back. And, of course, eventually, though, he makes a Mecca because he's Islamic. He will make a pilgrimage to Mecca. And when he comes back from that, he actually changed his tune a little bit. In his last few months on this earth, I guess you'd say, just before he was killed, you know, Malcolm X kind of went along with what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying. And he felt like nonviolence was a better approach. But he definitely for a long time presented the opposite of civil disobedience, that fighting back was important. Now, was this successful? Was it a failure? You know, obviously the biggest thing that's going to happen with the civil rights movement is how a lot of people would view maybe that it comes to an end, and that is in April of 1968. Martin Luther King Jr. is going to be shot and killed in Memphis, Tennessee. And a lot of people look at that as kind of the moment where basically the straw broke and people realized some things had to change. Was Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil disobedience, was it successful? Was all this punishment he and his group took, you know, was it enough to change the tide? Or should they have fought back like Malcolm X wanted? And that's where you're going kind of with your evaluation today, is you're going to look back on this and you're going to attack this. Again, to kind of wrap everything up that we've talked about today, lesson 1 and 2, hopefully you've read through lesson 1 and 2. Hopefully you've been working on your 19 questions that I gave you Monday and you've done your key terms. I just went through civil disobedience. If you need to, you can Google civil disobedience of the civil rights movement, and you can read up all you want. Read up about Martin Luther King Jr., read up about Mohandas Gandhi, read up about any of the events I just talked about, Rosa Parks, the sit-ins, Selma to Montgomery March, the March on Washington, the Children's Crusade in Birmingham, Freedom Riders, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombings, all those things. You can read up on them, and I want your opinion on the civil disobedience. Again, the question I'm asking you, Describe why the use of civil disobedience through the civil rights movement was successful. All right. You may not have thought it was. Obviously, a lot of people do think it was successful. Who inspired it? We just talked about that. Who used it with success? We just talked about that. What are some examples of it in use? I just gave you some examples. And describe these examples. Give me some details that I just gave you. You go read up some more about the things I just quickly talked about. Hopefully I didn't misquote anything. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, off my mind. But hopefully everything I gave you was good tonight. And lastly, at the very end, after you tell me who came up with it and who used it, after you give me 2 examples of civil disobedience in work, then you're going to wrap it up with this. Did civil disobedience work? Does it work? Is it the right way? Should you take it rather than give it back? Is it more important? I mean, I don't think there's a time period where this question ain't relevant right now. You know, is fighting back the answer, or is there a slower, calming approach to handling things that needs to be done through communication and through actions, such as, you know, sitting down and talking about things, taking it, finding the victim in the process. So that's our quiz for today. Right now, you're gonna cut this video off. You're gonna write me a 1-page response to that question. This is right here, question number 1 down here. Remember to talk about these 3 things. I want 1 type page. Follow the instructions that are right here on this document. When you get done with it today, you're going to come back to your Google Classroom. You're going to come back to Wednesday's assignment for April the 1st, Wednesday assignment evaluating Civil Rights Movement Lesson 1 and 2. And you're going to post it on here, turn it in right here on this assignment today. And I'm going to give you a grade for it. Hopefully you'll do pretty well on it. Remember, I'll be back on Friday. On Friday, you're going to turn in your weekly assignment. Next week, we're still talking about the Civil Rights Movement. We'll be going on a little virtual field trip, and we'll do probably a little open book quiz on the Civil Rights Movement towards the end of the week next week. Hope you're doing good. You know Coach Odie loves you. Coming to you my better than everybody else's camouflage hat. I don't know about y'all, but I'm looking here at this camera on YouTube. I'm seeing me in this hat. I'm seeing me with this peppery gray and bright beard, this beautiful face of mine, and I'm thinking, God, entertainment at its finest. Why didn't I get sponsors right here? Who knows? I hope you're doing good. I miss you. I miss you. I hope your family's doing good. I hope you're staying safe. They say the next 2 weeks is the worst 2 weeks. Hopefully we can get through this April. April 2020 is going to be a tough one. Keep my family in your prayers. I'm going to keep you in my prayers. Whatever you believe in, think good thoughts here. Let's get through this thing. Stay indoors. Stay away from this coronavirus. We're going to make it. I promise you. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Coca-Cola's still going to be the #1 drink in America. Stay with us here, okay? Let's get through this thing. Write your essay. I'll talk to you again on Friday. Hopefully you ain't got no questions. Hopefully we're all good. Bye.